Okay, so we'll move into our presentations. And so we're looking at weed management and restoration on the river. And so our first presentation is going to be from Jens, who's with the commission. He's the restoration coordinator for the Jordan River. And he's going to provide an update on ongoing restoration efforts along the river, as well as the current best practices for Phragmites treatment and removal, which yeah, so if anybody has any questions about that and how to access that, just different issues, Jens is the guy, and we've got some time for questions afterwards. And then the second presentation is going to be split between Kim Sorensen, or I guess maybe Bruce, you're going to speak for Kim, and with Murray, and then Tyler Murdoch, who's the Deputy Director of Public Lands for Salt Lake City, talking about ongoing maintenance of the Jordan River natural lands, and how that's going in terms of funding, especially. And so they're going to be talking about how they've effectively built some political support to get their funding. And so, yeah, again, a really good topic for other municipalities with Jordan River frontage. So let's see, Jens, let's start with you. So take it away.
All right. Well, I think I shared my presentation, so let me know if you don't see it. But yeah, I just want to talk about like Phragmites control, and just do some brief updates on some forestry fire and state land stuff. So on that note, um, for everybody that's been here a while, you'll remember the cooperative weed management area grants for the Jordan River. We didn't do these this last year, but we're going to be releasing another about $100,000 this coming year. And I'll have a lot more info about this for the next meeting. But if you're on this info or this email list, you'll also get a bunch of email or a bunch of info that way. And we'll be releasing RFPs sometime in the next few months, coming up soon. And yeah, these grants are for invasive species control, vegetation improvement, any kind of like weed management, vegetation stuff along the Jordan River. Last time we had this grant, we opened it up to multi-year projects. And I think that really helps get some good work on the ground and get some good momentum going. So we're going to open it up to multi-year projects again for this coming year. And so, yeah, so most of what I'm going to talk about is Phragmites control. And just as a background of where I'm coming from, I have a series of ongoing Phragmites control and revegetation project spread out all across the Jordan River. We just wrapped up our second year of working on these projects, and we're seeing some promising signs as far as Phragmites control goes. We originally chose these sites based on these three ideas of critical need, protection, and leveraged efforts. And our idea behind this is like these are all pilot projects where we can learn how to control Phragmites and then apply that to ramp up efforts along the whole river. And so from these projects, we put together some best practice documents for Phragmites control, Russian olive and tamarisk control, and like revegetation tips. I'll share a folder with these documents in it in the chat after my presentation. But yeah, and for the rest of my presentation, I'm just going to run through the Phragmites document and share some tips that I've learned dealing with this. So yeah, so starting from the start, when dealing with Phragmites, it's way more effective to combine chemical, mechanical, and revegetation treatments than it is to just like do one of these strategies or a couple of these strategies. And each of these steps is fairly equally important in the long run. So it's important to be thorough with all of them. And then as an overall timeline, I like to do herbicide spraying in kind of the later summer, a lot of mowing in the winter. You can also do mowing kind of before you do the herbicide, as long as you give it a decent window for the Phragmites to grow back before you spray it with herbicide. And then revegetation can kind of be mixed in mostly in the spring, fall, that kind of thing. Um, and so, yeah, so like I generally like to spray Phragmites sometime in August, usually. Spraying later in the growing season tends to have better long-term results. But the most important consideration with this is to spray when the Phragmites is healthy enough to take up the herbicide. Um, if it's a dry year or like if the patch is further from water, you might have to spray earlier in the summer. Once you start seeing like the leaf tips start to yellow, then usually the plant isn't healthy enough to take in the herbicide as effectively. Um, and then, yeah, so we use an aquatic approved glyphosate, the higher end of the labeled rate with an aquatic approved non-ionic surfactant. Adding ammonium sulfate also improves the absorption of the herbicide. And aquatic approved, you can also use aquatic approved imazapyr, but imazapyr tends to persist in the soil and impact revegetation. So I generally only recommend it when, when glyphosate has already been used at the site for a few years and like there's a risk of glyphosate resistance. And then, yeah, like all different methods of herbicide application I've used, from backpack, vehicle, drone spraying is really nice. I Our drone spraying contractor recently got bought out by someone else. So if anybody knows of a good drone spraying herbicide contractor, please let me know. Those are very, very useful for just accessing these patches of Phragmites that are blocked by water or anything like that. Um, for the mechanical treatment, for the mowing, I usually do all of that in the winter. This gives the Phragmites plenty of time for the herbicide to be absorbed after the spraying, and then also water levels are generally pretty low, making it a lot more accessible to walk out to patches, to bring vehicles out, anything like that. And yeah, like water levels in the Jordan River are variable enough that physically being able to reach the Phragmites is a challenge to keep in mind for both the spraying and the mowing, which is why drone spraying is really nice, and then mowing in the winter when the water's low is also very nice. And yeah, so like mowing is important to remove all the biomass so subsequent herbicide treatments can reach the new growth. It's also nice to clear out last year's material so it's more apparent and more obvious where the new Phragmites is growing. And then moving on to revegetation, there's a ton of ways to get plants back onto the landscape. I always try to use a combo of living plants and seed. Living plants are nice because it gets growing plants on the landscape really fast, and then seed just to start competing with the seed bank of invasive plants. Getting that quick recovery of native plant cover is important to restore ecological function and resist reinvasion of Phragmites or any other invasive weed. But I like to do at least a couple years of herbicide and mowing treatment before I revegetate, just to remove as much Phragmites as I can before adding new plants. Like once you have a mix of Phragmites and desirable plants in the same spot, then applying herbicide gets a lot more tricky. You have to be a lot more selective. So it's a lot easier to leave an area primarily as Phragmites until you have a pretty good die off of the Phragmites. And yeah, so the revegetation best practices document I'll put in the chat has a lot of plant recommendations. But one of my favorites is inland saltgrass, just because it's a good ground cover. It doesn't grow super tall. And it does well in areas that get more water and less water, so it's good for the Jordan River that has a lot of fluctuation. Um, yeah, so some key takeaways that I've learned doing this is being consistent with the timing and application of these treatments is very important. Phragmites control is often like a 3 to 5 year endeavor. So it's important to commit to the treatments for that entire time window. Um, there's like a pretty big difference at the sites I've worked on where we've had consistent herbicide treatment every year and thorough herbicide treatment versus sites that were like we did herbicide treatment one year, then skipped another one. Um, Especially like for the first 2 years, if you skip the second year, it can almost look like nothing happened, like you didn't do anything. So just being consistent with your treatments is very important. And then also going with that is this idea of like, doing it thoroughly. Um, Small patches of Miss Phragmites, like it seems insignificant in the moment when you're mowing it. But when looking at the river overall, having these remaining little patches here and there, it adds up pretty quick. Um, and then, yeah, as far as timing, waiting a month between any mowing and herbicide treatments is very important just to let the plant either absorb the herbicide before you mow it or to let the plant grow big enough to where the herbicide is effective before you spray it. And then also this last point, just keeping bank stability in mind whenever you're looking at new project sites. Some methods to help prevent erosion when treating riverbank Phragmites include, like removing the Phragmites in smaller patches, doing it in phases, using fabric or logs to act as temporary erosion controls, or even just using plants like willow stakes or sod mats, just to quickly get that new vegetation in place and provide all of like the bank stability, soil stability uh, effects that the Phragmite was doing. Um, and yeah, so that kind of wraps it up. I mean, my hope is that like opening the CWMA grants to more multi-year projects will help fund this kind of longer term weed management requirement, rather than everything being broken up into one fiscal year rounds. Um, but yeah, we've got a couple other presenters to share their thoughts on long-term project maintenance too. So I think I'll stop there, let them take over. Please put questions in chat. I'll answer them throughout the meeting. Anything
Yeah,
like
we'll
that.
try to hold some time at the end for some questions, but thanks, Jens, and